Imagine you have an apple tree in your backyard. You could pick all the apples today and store them in your cellar. They'll stay fresh for months. You know exactly what you have and exactly how many pies you can bake. That's a bit like saving money. Or you could take some of those apples, plant their seeds, and start an orchard. It takes longer, there's more uncertainty. Some trees might not make it, but in a few years, you could have hundreds of apple trees, producing thousands of apples every season. That's more like investing. Both approaches have their place. You wouldn't want to plant all your apples. You'd go hungry, waiting for those trees to grow. But if you never plant any seeds, you're missing out on an incredible opportunity to multiply what you have. This is the key difference between saving and investing. But how do you know which approach makes sense and when? Let's start with savings. Your financial cellar, if you will, when you put money in a savings account, it's like putting those apples in cold storage. Your money is safe, protected, and you know exactly how much you have. But many people don't realize how safe or why. Savings accounts are actually insured by the federal government through something called the FDIC. That's the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Up to $250,000 of your money is guaranteed safe, even if your bank goes belly up tomorrow. This insurance isn't some vague promise. It's rock solid. Since the FDIC was created in 1933, no one has ever lost a penny of their insured deposits. Not during the 2008 financial crisis, not during the 1987 stock market crash, not ever. So, should you put all your money into a savings account? Probably not. All this safety comes with a trade-off. Remember our apple cellar? Those apples aren't going to multiply in there. They might even slowly shrivel up a bit. Just like your money can slowly lose value to inflation. Let's look at the numbers. Right now, a typical savings account pays about 0.5% interest per year. That means if you save $1,000, after a year you'll have $1,005. Not exactly retirement money, is it? Meanwhile, inflation, that's the general rise in prices over time, typically runs about 2 to 3% per year. So while your $1,000 grew to $1,005, the stuff you could buy with that money now costs $1,020 or more. You're actually losing purchasing power, even though your account balance is going up. But don't despair. This doesn't mean savings accounts are useless. Far from it. They're absolutely essential for certain situations. First, let's look at the alternative, investing. Remember our apple tree metaphor? When you invest, you're essentially buying assets that have the potential to grow over time. The most common way to do this is through the stock market. You might be thinking, isn't the stock market just gambling? Not exactly. When you buy stocks, you're not placing bets. You're buying actual pieces of real companies. If you own Apple stock, you literally own a tiny slice of Apple. Every iPhone sold, you get a microscopic cut of that profit. Every MacBook, same thing. And here's the kicker. Over the long term, the stock market has grown by about 10% per year on average. Not every year, mind you. Some years it's up 20%, some years it's down 10%. But over time, that average has held remarkably steady. Let's put some real numbers to this. Remember our $1,000 in the savings account that grew to $1,005 after a year? Well, if you invested that same $1,000 in a broad mix of stocks and waited 30 years, based on historical averages, you'd end up with $17,449. That's not a typo. That's the magic of compound returns. Your money makes money, and then that money makes more money, and then that money makes even more money. It's like your apple trees producing seeds that grow into new trees that produce more seeds. You get the picture. Here's the math. Year 1, $1,000 times 1.10 equals $1,100. Year 2, $1,100 times 1.10 equals $1,210. Year 3, $1,210 times 1.10 equals $1,331. and it just keeps growing faster and faster. By year 30, your money is earning more in a single year than you originally invested. Now that's how you build wealth. Of course, there's a catch. There's always a catch. Unlike savings accounts, investments aren't FDIC insured. When you invest in stocks, their value can go down, sometimes by a lot. Remember 2008? The stock market dropped by about 50%. If you had $10,000 invested, it became $5,000, seemingly overnight. Or more recently, 2022, when both stocks and bonds dropped at the same time, something that historically almost never happens. But hear this, these drops are temporary, if you can stay invested long enough. Every single major drop in stock market history has eventually been followed by new all-time highs. Every single one. Think about it, companies don't just give up when times get tough. They adapt, they innovate, they find new ways to make money. And as a stockholder, you benefit from all of that ingenuity. Now that you understand why to invest, let's talk about how. There are several types of accounts you can use, and surprise, the government actually wants you to invest for your future. They want it so much, they'll even give you tax breaks for doing it. First up is the 401k, which is offered through many employers. The money goes straight from your paycheck into investments before taxes are taken out. Even better, many companies will match some of your contributions. Let's be crystal clear here. If your employer offers a match and you're not taking advantage of it, you are literally turning down free money. That's like having an apple tree in your yard and letting the fruit rot on the ground. Then there's the IRA, Individual Retirement Account. Think of it as a cousin to the 401k that similarly has tax benefits but doesn't need an employer's permission. You can open one at any brokerage firm and you can contribute up to $7,000 per year. Are you convinced? Good news, it's never been easier to start investing. Companies like Vanguard, Fidelity, and Charles Schwab will let you open an account online in minutes. These are called brokerages, and they're like banks for your investments. But here's the best part. You don't need to become a stock-picking genius. In fact, trying to pick individual stocks is often a recipe for disaster. One bad decision, and you could lose all your money. Instead, you can buy something called an index fund, which is like buying a tiny slice of many major companies all at once. When you buy an S&P 500 index fund, for example, you instantly own small pieces of the 500 largest companies in the United States, like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and about 497 others. It's like buying an entire orchard instead of trying to pick which individual tree will grow the tallest. Now, back to the million-dollar question, sometimes literally. How do you know whether to save or invest your money? The answer comes down to time. When will you need this money? If you need it within the next 3 to 5 years, like for a house down payment, a wedding, or your emergency fund, that money belongs in savings. Yes, even though the returns are low. The stock market can be down 20% exactly when you need to buy that house. But money you won't need for 5+ years? That's investment territory. Your retirement savings, your kids' college fund, if they're still young, or money you're setting aside for long-term wealth building. This money has time to ride out market ups and downs. Think of it this way, you wouldn't plant an apple seed if you needed apples for dinner tonight. But if you're planning years ahead, plant that orchard. You know what's funny about investing? People have a knack for taking something that could be simple and turning it into a complex mess. It's like trying to write a mathematical formula for making your morning coffee. Sure, you could calculate the optimal water temperature to the 3rd decimal place, but maybe just brew the coffee. The same thing happens with investing. People try to outsmart the market with complicated strategies, when the biggest mistakes are actually pretty simple to avoid. First up, trying to time the market. This is when people try to guess the perfect time to buy or sell investments. In other words, buy low, sell high. Here's the problem. Nobody, and we mean nobody, can consistently predict market moves. Even professional investors get it wrong all the time. You want proof? If you had invested $10,000 in the S&P 500 20 years ago and just left it alone, you'd have about $70,000 today. But if you missed just the 10 best trading days during those 20 years, just 10 days out of 7,300, you'd only have about $35,000. Ouch. Another classic blunder? Panic selling during market downturns. When stocks drop sharply, many investors can't stand the pain and sell everything. It's like jumping out of a roller coaster at its lowest point. You're locking in the losses and missing the ride back up. During the 2020 COVID crash, the market dropped 34% in just a few weeks. Investors who sold at the bottom missed out on a 100% recovery over the next year. And here's another mistake: putting all your money in just one or two stocks. Sure, if you'd put everything in Apple 20 years ago, you'd be rich. But for every Apple, there's an Enron, a company that went from industry leader to bankruptcy. Even giant companies like General Electric have lost 80% of their value. Remember our apple orchard metaphor? This is like betting your entire farm on a single tree. The solution to all these mistakes: keep it simple. Instead of trying to time the market, just spend time in the market. Instead of picking individual stocks, buy the whole market through index funds. And instead of panicking during downturns, remember that the market has recovered from every single crash in history. Professional investors know the best investment strategy is often the most boring one. The concept is beautifully simple. It's called dollar cost averaging, which means invest the same amount regularly, no matter what the market is doing. Here's a real example. Say you decide to invest $500 every month in an index fund. Some months, the stock market will be up, and shares might cost $50 each. Other months, the market is down, and those same shares might only cost $40. When shares cost $50, your $500 buys you 10 shares. When shares cost $40, your $500 buys you 12.5 shares. You see what happened there? When prices were lower, you naturally bought more shares. When prices were higher, you bought fewer shares. Without trying to time anything, you naturally ended up buying more shares when they were cheap and fewer when they were expensive. That's the magic of dollar cost averaging. Even better, you can automate this whole process. Set up monthly transfers from your paycheck or bank account, and you'll be building wealth while you sleep. No emotional decisions, no trying to guess what the market will do next. It's like having a robot gardener for your money tree. The best part about automation? It protects you from your own worst instincts. When the market is crashing and everyone is panicking, your recurring investment keeps right on buying, picking up shares at discount prices. When the market is soaring and everyone is getting greedy, your automated investment keeps you disciplined, preventing you from going overboard. Let's now explore the benefits of index funds over individual stocks. That's part of something called diversification, spreading your money across a variety of investments to reduce risk. Think about it this way. If you invested everything in one company's stock and that company goes bankrupt, you lose everything. But if you own pieces of hundreds or thousands of companies, you're protected against any single company's problems. And it's not just about stocks. You can also invest in bonds, which are loans to companies or governments, real estate funds, and other types of investments. Each type tends to behave differently in different economic conditions. When stocks are down, bonds might be up, and vice versa. The end result? A properly diversified portfolio gives you the best of both worlds: protection against major losses and the potential for strong returns. No single market event, company failure, or economic shock can take down your entire portfolio, but you're still positioned to benefit when markets rise. Let's talk taxes. With a regular savings account, any interest you earn gets taxed as ordinary income. That means if you're in the 22% tax bracket and you somehow manage to earn $100 in interest, Uncle Sam takes $22. Not great. But investing, if you buy and hold investments for more than a year, you get a special gift from the IRS called long-term capital gains rates. Instead of paying your normal tax rate, you might pay just 15% or even 0% on your profits, depending on your income. And it gets better with retirement accounts. In a traditional 401k or IRA, you don't pay any taxes on the money you put in until you take it out in retirement. In a Roth IRA, you pay taxes now, but then never pay taxes on the growth, ever. That's like prepaying for an all-you-can-eat buffet of tax-free returns. There are some common myths out there that are really just excuses for not saving and investing. Myth number 1. You need a lot of money to start investing. Reality? You can start with as little as $1 in some apps, or whatever your employer's 401k minimum is, often just 1% of your paycheck. Myth number 2. Investing is just like gambling. Reality? When you gamble, the house always wins in the long run. When you invest in the stock market, you are the house. Myth number 3. I'm too young, or I'm too old to start investing. Reality? The best time to start investing was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Whether you're 18 or 80, there's a smart investment strategy for your age. Your investment strategy should change as you get older, kind of like how your diet probably changed since you were 5. In your 20s and 30s, you can afford to be aggressive. Market down 30%? No problem. You've got decades to recover, and you're buying stocks on sale. In your 40s and 50s, you might want to start adding more bonds to your portfolio. They generally provide smaller but more stable returns. Think of them as shock absorbers for your financial vehicle. By the time you're near retirement, you'll want to move a good chunk of your money into safer investments. After all, you don't want to postpone retirement just because the market had a bad year. Here's a roadmap to get you started saving and investing. Build your emergency fund first. Aim for 3 to 6 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account. If your employer offers a 401k match, contribute enough to get the full match. It's the closest thing to free money you'll ever find. Consider opening a Roth IRA for some tax diversity in retirement. Future you will thank present you. Automate your investments. Even small amounts add up over time. Resist the urge to change your investments too often. Your wealth is like a bar of soap. The more you touch it, the smaller it gets. Remember, saving versus investing isn't really an either-or choice. It's about using both tools appropriately. Your savings account is your financial shield, protecting you from life's challenges. Your investments are your financial sword, helping you cut through inflation and build real wealth over time. The key is to use each tool for what it does best. Don't try to chop down trees with a shield, and don't try to block arrows with a sword. That's smart money. Just one more thing. If you want to #learn more about $finance, you can find extras on our website, Socratica.com. Quizzes, bonus materials, other helpful things.